Morning, everyone. It's Wednesday, May 11th. Thank you for coming. And with that, the meeting is called to order. And we'll start with roll call, and then we'll turn to our council.
Mr. Terrace?
Here.
Mr. Meyer? He should be on the phone shortly. Mr. Rodriguez-Pina as well. Mr. Vasquez? Chair Martinez? Vice Chair Font? Also present are Mr. Curry.
Excellent. Council?
Do any members of the committee have a conflict with any items on the agenda? No before. Is anybody on the phone right now?
Rick Rodriguez-Pina is on the phone.
Treasurer Pina, do you have a conflict with any items on the agenda? I guess you can't hear me.
Silence does not mean no or yes.
It does if you're voting.
It's sometimes,
Sorry,
yeah.
I accidentally muted the phone. No, sir, I do not have a conflict.
All righty.
Yeah, sometimes it's difficult to hear when you're calling in, so everyone really has to speak into the microphone. Yeah, especially anyone that's on the dais speaking. It's horrible. Okay, with that, we move forward. Any public comments on any item? All right, seeing no show of hands or standing up, public comments are now closed. We move forward to the operations action agenda. Is there an approval of the summary minutes? Last month's meeting? Is there a second? All right. Anybody against it? The action so moves. Thank you. Item B.
MDX procurement contract RFP 16-01, inspection and reporting services, $4,650,000 maximum for the two contracts. Endorsement of selection and award.
Okay, will that be Helen? Thank you.
The requested action is the endorsement of the Technical Evaluation Committee's recommendation to select and enter into contract negotiations with and award the contracts to the two highest ranked proposers. An RFP was released on February 19, 2016 to select two firms to provide the inspection and reporting services for MDX structures. On March 22nd, 4 proposals were received from Marlin Engineering, Network Engineering Services doing business at Bolton Perez & Associates, Transsystem Corporation Consultants, and Volker Inc. Staff performed compliance and responsiveness of the proposals, and all of them contain minor irregularities that were cured pursuant to the provisions of the solicitation documents and our the MDX procurement policy. All proposals were forwarded to the Technical Evaluation Committee. The Technical Evaluation Committee met on May 9th to finalize the evaluation of the proposals, and I believe that the matrix was sent to the committee exactly. And the two highest ranked proposals were Marlin Engineering and Transsystem Corporation Consultants. Contingent to this committee's endorsement, staff will enter into negotiations with the two firms for a not to exceed amount of $1.3 million for the 4-year term. This is a task authorization driven contract. It would have the option for a renewal for an additional 4 years. To be exercised at the option of the agency and pursuant to them receiving a minimum of excellent rating in their contract performance evaluation. This contract also has a 15% small business participation requirement as well as a 15% local business participation requirement. And the budget would be allocated or be approved as part of the operating budget on an annual basis, depending on the need for that particular year.
Member Walters was part of the oversight. Would you like to comment on this item, please?
Well, while I was assigned on the oversight, I never actually got to be involved. And I'm glad you asked me to respond. I'd like to see the issue of bringing outsiders in and on the selection committees to be revisited. I remember a number of years ago when this whole concept was discussed. And the idea was to create more transparency and whatnot. And there's a lot of value in doing that, and I'm not saying it should end. But I'd like to see some more flexibility developed into the system, because initially I was contacted by staff and asked if I could come on April 25th, 26th, or 27th. I said, I'm good on the 25th, I'm good on the 26th. I got a call back, well, the outside representative isn't available that day. How about the week of May 2nd? I said, I'm fine all that week. I got a call back, oh, that's not going to work. How about Tuesday, May 10th? I said, well, I've got an 11:50 flight arriving in Miami around 1, but I can change that. So I changed it to a 7 a.m. flight, meaning I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning yesterday to catch the plane. But the meeting, I got a call back saying, oh, the 10th isn't going to work. Can you be here on the 9th? Well, I wasn't going to make any more changes. And what I'd like, and I understand these people are doing us a favor by agreeing to serve, but I think staff needs the flexibility to assign alternatives or maybe proceed with one less. I think it needs to be revisited because I don't think the outside person should be driving everyone's schedule. And that's the point I wanted to make. And I got to tell you something. I've sat in on one of these selection processes, actually two. I sat in on GEC. And while I come to most of the committee meetings because that's how you learn what's really going on. You're not going to learn it from the board meetings. But when you get to these selection committee meetings, you really see how the nuts and bolts all fit together and how the whole comes out of it. And it's an invaluable opportunity. And I'd like to continue that aspect of it.
Major revelation with your experience, what has occurred in this situation. But I think you bring about a very good point that we need to have a backup plan and an alternative member in case of this situation. I mean, it sounds ludicrous on someone's agenda.
Madam Chair, would you let me a few words on this? I really think that, like in juries, and I think in other complicated issues, you always have an alternate that sits in on these things. So I think you should always have a person that is available so that if there's someone who at the beginning cannot make it and we can't accommodate their dates, that you're able to then substitute that person and you don't lose time. The other thing, Mr. Executive Director, that I think you ought to really revisit, and we ought to be doing this every 3 or 4 years, in the way we do the grading. I'd like to go back for the last 10 years on all major projects, and you determine how to define major projects. And I'd like to see in the ranking, if there's any case where the high vote and the low vote were thrown out, there would have been any difference in the outcome. And I think now that time has passed and all that, I would like to revisit that issue because, I've seen, we've all served on these things, and I've seen how you can skew it very easily. Right now, and I gotta admit that right now we're choosing a new director for the Florida Transportation Commission. So we have to submit 5 names for the 5 finalists. Well, I submit 3 because there are only 3 that are qualified. But by submitting 3, what I'm doing is I'm really skewing the average because I'm taking 2 votes away from somebody else. Now, they let me get away with it, but I realize that I'm kind of cutting the corner a little bit. But I've got a good excuse for doing it. I'm saying
You shouldn't be showing your card.
Well,
Meeting.
yeah, I don't. Yeah, no, this is not illegal, and it's not. I don't think it's even immoral, or unethical. But there's no question that there are ways in which you can skew these things legally and ethically. And I'm saying that we ought to take a look to see what other best practices are. I'm just saying we ought to revisit once in a while. Yeah.
I think staff has heard you, and they're going to get back to us with an analysis. With that, I'm going to say I need a motion, at least for opening this item for discussion and voting on it. I need a motion.
I'll move it.
Motion. Is there a second? Second. The item is continued to be open for discussion. And with that, I am going to ask you, I need you to expand a little bit more on the minor irregularities. Exactly what were they?
The minor irregularities were related to not demonstrating or not showing in their, for example, one of the requirements was that certain members of the team needed to have a certain number of years of experience. And the way to demonstrate those numbers of years was to list the projects with dates in their resumes. In instances, there were times where they didn't submit the dates or didn't list all the projects that amounted to the required number of years for that particular individual. So we would ask them to give us that information. But they had the individual in place. They had identified who the individual was. The individual had the qualifications that were required, and the pre-qualifications were met. It was just not clearly demonstrating it within the proposal. They could have, for example, they would give us, say, within the body of the proposal, or even within the body of the resume, that in fact they had the required years of experience, and all of them actually exceeded the required numbers of experience, but they didn't clearly demonstrate it in the proposal, so we would ask for those clarifications. I actually put a summary together for Ms. Fano. One of them, the certification letter from FDOT was expired, but we were able to verify from the FDOT website that they had that the qualifications was current at the time they submitted the proposal, and we did ask him for an actual copy of the certification letter with the correct, with the effective and current dates. One of the proposals didn't acknowledge receive one of the addenda. One of the proposals exceeded the number of pages that were allotted in a particular section of the proposal, so we removed those pages before releasing the proposal to the Technical Evaluation Committee. Those were the types of minor irregularities. But everyone met the requirement. Everyone the team was never impacted, the composition of the team. It was just the way it wasn't clear in the proposal how they met the requirements, mainly years of experience.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Member Vaca.
Thank you. So as a follow-up to your question, I have a follow-up to your question, Madam Chair, and then a separate question. So just to finish, I guess, that sentence as it relates to irregularities, we once again are remaining consistent with our practices.
Yes.
Okay. My separate question is, this one is a little different, and I asked Helen separately, but I want to ask her on the record, where we are selecting two contractors. My question is how many other examples do we have of contractors where we select more than one contractor, and when there is multiple contractors, how do we, like as opposed to the A and B contracts for engineering, how do we dish out the work, if you will?
That's a great question. This is bridge inspection. Juan can explain how.
For this particular contract, what we do is that our bridge inspections run on biannual cycles. But so when we do, let's say we do 50 bridges in 1 year, we will assign the majority of the bridge inspection work to one firm in that year, in that inspection year. But then there's also a verification test that has to be done. So that verification test, which is like a percentage of the number of bridges that are inspected, we'll do that under the other team. And then in the next cycle, we switch it up so that the team B that got the lower portion of the work gets the majority of the bridge inspections, or does the bridge inspections, and then Team A will do the verification period. Because it's a biannual cycle, we have it for 4 years so that each team gets 2 full cycles of inspections, with the other team getting getting the verification cycle, and then we do the 2-year renewals so that we're able to cover the full inventory in that 2-year period of inspections. Under other contracts where we've done pools, or we've done multiple CEIs or design teams, we base that on the work program, the amount of work available, and in those particular contracts, what we've done in the past is try to make sure that we maintain an even distribution in the amount of work that we're distributing, so that we can maintain it as even as possible. I mean, it's never going to be exact, but for the most part, you're going to be within 2 or 3% of the dollar amount that's distributed to all the vendors at that point, and we try to do that based on the availability of work. So, like right now, we don't have those pools for design and CI, but we're looking at the current work program that was just approved, and looking at other work that's going to be coming online in the future to see how those contracts would be pursued in the future, and we can make sure that we have the work out there. We don't want to have contracts just sitting there and then companies calling us asking us, hey, we have a contract but we don't have work. We want to make sure that we can distribute some of that work out there.
Right. Any other questions? Mr. Wald.
One, is that typical industry practice to have the inspections done and then have somebody inspect what the inspectors have done?
Yes, it is. Especially with the bridges, because we have to report all that through the state system.
But the 4-year cycle, is that typical too?
Yes, for these type of contracts, yes, because of the way that the inspections run, because of the biannual. So, again, for example, if we do 50 bridges this year, those 50 bridges won't get inspected until the 3rd year again. So it runs on that.
I keep going back in my mind to that billboard I saw where it said MDX's bridges are the highest rated in the country.
Yes.
You know, and I'm trying to understand how we got there. You know.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
It's not just the inspection. It's once you get the inspection report, if there's a deficiency, program it and do it immediately to bring it up.
In the past, your past experience, have you ever come across on the inspection of the original inspection problems?
We haven't seen any issues with the original inspections. I think the verification shows that the initial inspection was good. And that's the intent of the verification.
Any other questions? No questions? So in other words, in conclusion, this was always, from the beginning, a pool that would have gotten two consultants.
That's correct.
Okay. And during the period of the contract, when one consultant inspects a bridge, he doesn't continue to inspect the bridge continuously because the second consultant is the one that comes back to inspect.
That's
so in
correct.
other words, if something was missed, it is at that point corrected, and we're sure that no one is playing any games with safety.
That's correct.
Okay. We got it? Any other questions? And with that, I call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone against? Motion carries. Congratulations to the two team. I believe they both have had work here. I recognize the names. Thank you.
Item C, MDX procurement contract number RFP 16-03, traffic and revenue consultant services, $2,500,000. Endorsement of selection and award.
The requested action is the endorsement for board approval of contract award of the sole respondent CDM Smith, Inc. On February of this year, MDX released an RFP seeking the services. We advertised in our regular newspapers, the local newspapers. We released it to all of our registered vendors as customary, and we held a pre-proposal conference, a non-mandatory pre-proposal conference, in which two potential proposers attended. However, on March 29th, we only received one proposal from CDM Smith. We did review our solicitation documents and process to make sure that there wasn't anything impeding competition, and feel comfortable that nothing was of that sort. We also reached out to the other proposal that attended the pre-proposal conference and asked as to their decision to not submit a proposal. It boiled down to a business decision. They took into account their available resources at the time to put together a proposal, the contract budget, which to them they felt it was low, and not wanting to compete against their incumbent. In addition to that, the preparation of investment and grading and traffic and revenue reports is a specialized services, and there's really only a handful of firms nationwide that provides these services. So it is common to receive to not have a high level of competition. What we also find is that a lot of agencies that have a bigger system have also opted to break up the work in order to create more competition. Unfortunately, we don't have enough work to have more than one consultant on board. Taking those considerations into account, we moved forward with the process and performed compliance review of the proposal. That proposal also had a minor irregularity, which we were able to cure pursuant to our solicitation documents and our procurement policy. We did held the technical evaluation committee to evaluate it and make sure that it met the minimum required score to be considered for selection, which they exceeded. The tech met on August. The tech met on August the 2nd and scored the proposal, and they recommended that they do be awarded the contract. Continuing to this committee's endorsement, we would enter into a contract negotiation with the firm for a 5-year. Actually, we don't have to negotiate; we would just enter into a contract with them for a 5-year term for not to exceed amount of $2.5 million. This is also a task authorization-driven contract. It also has a renewal for an additional 2 years, also contingent to receiving a minimum of excellent ratings. Because of the specialized services, it does not have a small and local business requirement, and the budget would be approved as part of the annual operating budget.
Very
And just
good.
to give an example, I'm sorry, to Mr. Walters' comments earlier about the Technical Evaluation Committee. In this case, for example, when this item originally came to this committee for approval for advertisement, the composition of the Technical Evaluation Committee also included a member of the Turnpike. When we reached out to them, they didn't have anyone available to participate in this process, so we went ahead and moved forward with the remaining composition of the tech. So we do try to accommodate as much as we can, keeping in mind that we need a minimum of 3 members in the Technical Evaluation Committee, keeping in mind the schedule that we need in order to have the services on board, and other factors that come into play. But we do try to accommodate changes or inconveniences within the composition of the Technical Evaluation Committee and the schedules as much as possible.
Thank you for sharing that. But then it brings back to mind the following. Why not, if the accommodation was made here, why not in the other one with all those changes? I mean,
Because there were only
it's
3
okay
members.
to have a conflict one time. The second time is already sort of ouch. But on the third and the fourth is way too many. So why not on the other one? Why
We
yes on this one?
I think there
You
was
see
a
what I mean?
special circumstance in where the schedules could not come together, but we only had 3 members of 3 evaluation members in that committee, and 2 of them were already in-house.
Yeah, the other significant part is that in the other one, which is bridge inspection, the person that we had assigned from District 6 is the manager of the bridges.
Correct.
He's the manager. It was important that he participates because all of our bridges are input into a system that is the federal system. That's why it was important that Dennis Fernandez be part of it. It's not like just taking Dennis out and bringing somebody else in.
Right.
That's the difference between that specialized type of work
His
with a bridge
experience
versus
is
this one, which
vital.
is traffic and revenue.
This is, okay, this is very important, but you have to understand these things. Unless we communicate it and we bring it out forward, it is not transparent. It makes more reason why things
Right.
are the way they are.
I-
So
I-
that's why I wanted to ask the question.
I will-
Because there had to
yeah.
be a reason, okay?
I will say that as part of the comments that Mr. Walters mentioned to me and made present to this committee, I believe that what we're going to do is look at our policy and see if we can give ourselves some flexibility, whether we can replace a member if it isn't a critical, if it's a critical
And
item
we
like
do.
the bridge inspection.
We do. We have that, and we do whenever
What happens
possible.
if Mr.
Yes.
Walters doesn't occur.
Yes.
And that's the key.
Yeah.
I think it does have to happen.
May I?
I wanted to open the item, so I wanted to get a vote on it. Yes.
May I just piggyback
Yes,
for a
absolutely.
real quick comment? First of all, I think you have to distinguish between things that are really controversial and difficult and complicated and things that are really easy like this.
Correct.
This is a no-brainer, I think. But I would like to ask 2 things. Why do we still use CDM Smith when that's not their name? Don't they have a new name?
That is their name.
Oh, CD. I see. So CDM Smith is the new name. Okay. And the second question that I have is following Maritz's example. I see that Marie Schaefer, the only outlier that I see is in staffing plan availability and quality control. She lowballed it by 5. That's the only thing that jumps out in this whole numerical sequence. And I'd like to know why. In other words, I think it's important that staffing plan availability and quality of control be as high as possible. And it bothers me. I have a high respect for Marie Schaefer's judgment. And if she puts it at 5, everybody else put it at 8.
And 7.
I want to know why she has such a low opinion.
I believe that she demands perfection. When these reports are brought in, traffic and revenue is important to her as the CFO.
If the chair doesn't mind, I'd like to bring that out at the regular
Absolutely.
meeting, and I'd like for her to give us an answer in public in front of CDM Smith so that they can get a little red face.
Well, they're very lucky that they were the only respondent, and they get to walk away with the contract, but
Okay.
not with a little slap in the face.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
In light of the fact that there was only one submission, and in light of the fact that CDM Smith, or in one form or another, has been the incumbent for as long as I can remember, perhaps next time the outreach should be a little broader, perhaps national publication, the next cycle.
We do that, Mr. Walters. Everyone was aware that this contract was out and was for competition.
Too small.
It's too small of a contract. It's a 5-year contract with a maximum.
I understand, but the memo said that it was advertised in 3 local newspapers and, the mailing list.
Everyone at IBTTA, the International Bridge, which does this all over the country, was very well aware that this was up for rebid.
Point taken.
And it's the hand of consultants that do this type of work. They were all well aware of it.
Do I have a motion? At least we need to continue if discussion. Need to have a motion on this item. Is there a motion? The discussion and even voting on it?
Oh, I'm sorry. Madam Chair, this is
Question.
Rick Letter-Uspina. A question. Again, I'm also, a lot of my questions were answered about the fact that there's only one respondent and some very good input from staff as well. So it is what it is. It doesn't put a smile on my face just to see that one respondent, but I understand that these are circumstances. One thing we may consider is shortening the time frame for this contract, from 5 years to 3 years. That's all. Let staff think about that one. And that is to encourage more participation and have, people know that this is not an 8-year contract, a 5-year with a 3-year option. It's a long time, so something for staff to consider. Secondly, and I'm not speaking for Marie, but I know that, my judging of them and some recent information gathering that CDM Smith has really had some shortfalls in their projections and some of their calculations, and this is talking to several staff members where they really don't have some of the technical expertise. And part of the strategic master plan, they made some errors in calculations, or at least lack of the knowledge and the expertise. So I want to make sure that we understand that they are our consultants, but I would feel more comfortable if we had done more competition and somebody else to go to, because we're tied to whatever projection, whatever strengths they have come along, but whatever weaknesses we're stuck to them. And I don't know how we remedy that, but I just wanted to put those, these comments on the record, because I know that again they've been off the mark a couple of times in the last year.
Thank you so very much, Treasurer. You've pointed out some very important issues here. I'm trying to see if I can get at least a motion and a second on this item so we can open it up for discussion. So as I make this call out, is there a motion on this item?
I'm going to give you a second only for discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, who's on the first? You're seconding, so you're on the first. So the item is now open for discussion with a first and a second. Any other questions
I
here?
have a question.
Yes.
Helen,
Yes, sir.
how integral is this? I mean, if it were, and I understand Javier said everybody at IBTTA knew about it. We got one response, I'm all about competition. How vital is this for us to take this right now as opposed to sending it out for another round?
I know that the service of the traffic and revenue consultants are important, especially when we are about or looking into going back into the market. So having them on board and being able to update our reports, et cetera, it's key. If the wishes of the committee is to go out again, we could potentially extend their contract to be able to have them on board to make sure that we don't have the lapse in services as we get ready to go out in the market. So there's a way around that if need be.
But I would warn the board, we could do that. That's an option of going forward. We've actually had that conversation internal. But what I would like to tell the board is there's no guarantee that the outcome isn't the same, that we only get one.
That,
At least you try.
I get
Understood.
that, but
Understood.
To the mayor's point, Marie did not grade. Hi, Marie. Welcome. Glad you're here. Right on time. Thank you.
Came with an escort. Are they armed?
Because being that you're saying that there are shortfalls with this contractor, I think it's important that we let the public know, let the vendors know, let the consultants know that we're looking for competition and perhaps someone that meets better criteria. I don't know. Just put it out, since I can't talk to you out of sunshine, I'm bringing this to the committee's attention.
Good point. Thank you so very much.
Hello, Marie.
Good morning. I apologize.
Morning.
As far as CDM Smith, I think the evaluation, I was part of giving them evaluation. They got a very good evaluation. I think they got, over 90%. They do a very good job at what they do when I deal with them on the traffic revenue studies, investment grade. My only point was really sometimes we had one bidder. I wanted to send a message that I was really looking for, some more broad-based experience. Technology is changing. I didn't want to see the same old, same old. I just kind of wanted the vendor to know, don't get too comfortable. We're looking to go to the next level in the tolling industry and other modes of transportation. So that was my only point as to why I scored them. But when you look at the evaluation that was attached to the Technical Evaluation Committee, they were scored in the 90s. They do a very good job.
Thank you very much. Very important. I do have to, I do have to recognize Member Vasquez.
Real quickly, putting the shortfalls aside for a moment, the issue of sole responder, single responder, it's always been a challenging issue for me because I've always found myself not wanting to punish the firm that ends up being the only respondent. I think that opens a can of worms when we re-advertise because we like and encourage competition. The analysis or the analogy that I've always made is like the elected official that is reelected because nobody ran against him. He automatically gets, you don't force an election, and it's something that we've seen companies stand on that microphone and talk about how we should throw things out because there was only one respondent. Well, and especially where you have a specialized service. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Good point. Thank you.
Germaine?
Yes.
I think that's the key. This is a highly specialized service, and the problem is that this company is the top of the line. In other words, they're the Cadillac. And so whenever the Cadillac company says, this is a good project, these are the riderships, the lenders, and that's what we're worried about. I mean, we're dealing in this thing with the people that are rating us and that are lending us money. And if it has a CDM Smith stamp on it of approval, that's a, it gives us a good push. So I'm reluctant to really play around with that because of that special circumstance of their very high reputation. I was just curious as to why Marie had graded them 5 when everybody else gave them an 8 or a 9, and now she's explained it, and I think that's perfectly understandable.
Do we have any other questions? Any other comments? I do want to expand on what the Vice Chair line of questioning. The current contract that they have, when does that expire?
I believe it expires June 30th or the conclusion of the solicitation process, whichever comes first, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so the window is a month. Okay, very good. Are we cutting things so close? All these contracts that we're going out to bid, we're cutting them pretty close on going out and the transition period in case somebody else wins the turnover period?
That's always, we can always accommodate that by either extending the contract or having, it's not.
You see, that's where we need to avoid, not extending the contract to the existing contractor if someone else is winning, okay? I think we need to give ourselves a little bit more latitude in terms of time frame. More of a longer period of transition in between the contract expiring and the new contractor coming in, where we could have a minimum of 6 months before we have to pull the trigger in case a situation like this occurs that we don't want to proceed, we don't want to accept, we want to reject and move forward and restart the procurement. We need to have that time available and not be forced to give an extension to that contractor because now, not let that be the decision that puts us against the rock and the wall. Okay? So I think we need to work on that a little bit. Thank you. Yes?
I agree with what you're saying, but I want to qualify the fact that what put up the red flag was Marie's rating. I have no issue that there's one person. I do encourage competition, and that was only brought about by Marie's valuation, and thank you for clarifying. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think the key to the whole thing is basically when you win a contract at MDX, whether you're a single respondent or you're competing within a pool, that we're looking to seek the very best. And don't get comfortable with, the fact that you won. That's basically what's being said here. You won, but we expect a higher level. We know you can do the job. You've qualified yourself to do the job, your experience and everything else you bring forward. But you know what? Don't just take it for granted. We're expecting more. So that's really what we're all learning here. So with that, I have a motion and I have a second. I'm calling the questions. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? Motion carries. Thank you. Forward.
Item D, MDX Work Program Number 83611, State Road 836, I-95 Interchange Improvements, endorsement of eminent domain parcels 15-21R and 15-22R.
Very good, but I think, yeah. And second, okay, the item is now open for discussion. Who's going to speak a little bit more on this side?
I will, Madam Chair. Again, in a series of partial resolutions that we've been bringing to the board, this is a couple more for project 83611, the 836 I-95 project. These resolutions will allow us to now go into the negotiation process or eminent domain if negotiations are not successful. That's basically it in a nutshell.
Okay, to get a better understanding of this particular project that we're doing, that we're not the ones that are really going to construct this project. This is the one that FDOT is going to do.
It is, but our commitment to the project was that we would have all the right-of-way acquired prior to the beginning of work.
And that's
Yes.
exactly where I want to focus in on. Can we look at this in a holistic approach? What it is that our skin in the game is going to be? In other words, what kind of monies are we going to be investing, MDX monies going into this project? I think this is what we need to know. Because at this point, we're getting all this as it comes about. The right approach to that, for me, is it's piecemeal. But in order to better understand, we need to see a global picture. How much money do we anticipate overall that it's going to come in from the MDX? Because it's not that MDX is off the hook. We understand that we have skin in the game here. FDOT is doing the procurement, but there's other things that we're going to have to be spending. Can we get a plan? Can we get one whole global? What is it that's going on so we have a better grasp? I would appreciate that. If that could be done, you don't have to answer today.
Okay, we will provide a breakdown.
I want you to have time
of all
and
the
analyze
costs.
it, so you give us a comprehensive
No,
plan.
we have all those
be asking
numbers.
the question
I mean,
next
we have
time.
the numbers already in place. We can provide you a breakdown of our project cost estimate by discipline. So construction, CI, right of way, GC costs. We can tell you the entire amount that we are estimating that it's going to cost us to deliver our portion
And
of
if
this
you know,
project.
divulge, because I think we need to know, because it feels like, okay, 1 month this eminent domain, another month this one. It's better for us to,
But we will.
to see the whole
I
puzzle.
think it'll be better if we provide you the breakdown, because if I throw out numbers right now and they're not in front of me, and then
Okay.
I don't like it. I don't want to be
Excellent.
10-15% off, and then you said, "Oh, you told me this number, but it was really this one." I'd rather give
Don't
you.
worry about it.
But board members, as far as our commitment to the project, the construction estimate, what was advertised to the construction world, it was split up with MDX's commitment on 83611, which was roughly $180 million
That's
of
correct.
construction cost. Break down the construction cost and all of the, quote, soft costs, the right-of-way, CEI, all of those elements, we'll break it down and show you exactly what's out there.
Excellent. We weren't sitting in those pre-qualifications at FDOT, so we really
We'll
like to know.
provide that in the next
Thank you.
meeting as an informational item.
Yes,
Madam
Mr.
Chair,
Mayor.
I hate to do this to you, Javier, but somewhere along the line, I'd like from you and your staff and consultants an estimate as to how much money we're really saving by joint venturing this thing with with FDOT. In other words, had we gone and done this $180 million on our own, would it have cost $180 million, or would it have cost more?
It's not an issue of the savings,
Or time.
Board Member Ferre. It's an issue of impacting the community. If we would have moved forward, which we could have moved forward by ourselves, because the construction overlaps the interchange of I-95 and I-395 and 836, it would force the Department of Transportation to either wait or have two contractors overlapping in the same area, which then creates a problem for the community. The fact that you're building it together and you have one oversight, you're going to save money on the throwaway items, because to build a certain segment of the project, you might have to build temporary.
Well,
You
there's
don't
got to be
do
a
that
savings
twice.
in all that. In other words,
The procurement is costing less because you're doing it all at
precisely.
once.
In other words, we're adding $180 million to a $600
we
million
have that- we
project,
have that
and I
number as well.
guarantee
We
you
can
that there's
provide it
some
all.
savings.
We can tell you what it would have cost if we did it on our own.
That's
we can show
my
you what the
question.
savings is, and we can show you how it is, how we're estimating it right now.
And my question, if I may, Madam Chair, is just an estimate. I'm not going to hold you to
Have
it.
that information.
I just like to know what the estimate is of what we're saving, because I get that, and that brings me up, if I may, Madam Chair, to the subject that, with all due respects to my very good friend Francis Suarez, he continues to talk about killing that project. Now, I know he's helping his father, and that's wonderful, and his father is dead set in killing the project, but that affects Tallahassee. Now, as I understand, the letting date has been chosen now, right? And it's really around the corner. When is
The
letting
procurement process began. They shortlisted the teams. Basically, all the teams moved forward to the next step. The final selection date is anticipated for sometime summer of next year. It's a long process. There's a lot of steps to this one because
Okay,
of
but
the bridge
here-
component and all the different aspects.
Here's my point. Since I can't talk to you in private, I've got to do this publicly. I'm sorry. I think all of us who like Francis and are his friend need to tell him, you're hurting the project, because the secretary gets all upset every time he sees some article from Miami that the project that the money that he wants to take the money to put it into Baylink. Well, that's impossible. I mean, there's no way to do that. And by spurring this thing on all the time, it creates doubt in Tallahassee, and it's not doing us any favor. I mean, and we have a history, a long, complicated history, as my friend and your friend Jose Abreu is continually reminding us of, that when politicians, and we know who the current politicians are that are doing that, they go up to Tallahassee, to ask for a special favor, to get some special money, to buy the CSX right away, or to do this, or to do the other project. Every time that happens, and it's an individual political head, what that does is it puts that project on hold. And we have to do these things as a whole, as an entity, rather than individually, because when we do it individually, we scare the people that make decisions in Tallahassee. And if there's another project in Tampa or Orlando that are pushing, or Jacksonville, that really need the money, they're taking our money out. In the past, they've taken Miami money, chip it off to Tampa.
Yeah, this signature bridge, it just has the wrong name altogether.
Yeah.
It needs to get a different name so it could finally be built. Is there any other questions on this item? No? You didn't know if he had any questions? All right, with that, very good points, Mayor. I'm calling the question, but I think I need to wait for him.
We'll do a presentation at the next Operations Committee on the entire projects, and we'll talk to you about savings for procurement, construction, and the savings to the community as far as time and disruption. So we'll do a comprehensive look at the entire process.
And I don't mean to single him out, but Javier Suarez, as you know, has been the single most critical person of this project, that this is a complete fiasco and blah, blah, blah. So we need to continually answer, because he doesn't stop his criticism, and he gets on with Jim DeFede. He goes on to the Michael Putney show. He's writing articles in the El Nuevo Herald. He wrote another nasty article that we have all this excess cash that he's going to take. Nobody believes him, but, they keep printing him.
Mr. Ferre and Madam Chair, if I may, because I will put this on the record, I've said it in the past when we talked about the JPA with the department. I have said this to the Department of Transportation. We are together going through the procurement, and we will continue to go together through the procurement. But if that procurement gets halted, if there are games played with the procurement where the likelihood of a construction project on the signature piece of it is delayed, then the projects will be decoupled and we'll move forward with our portion of it. We cannot have our money sit around and wait because there are tremendous needs on 836. The traffic on 836 getting to I-95 is horrendous.
It's a bottleneck.
It's horrendous, and we need to
goes-
fix it. So if there's games in the procurement, if there's delays, if there's any traction on taking money and moving it or whatever, then this process gets decoupled and we move forward on our own. And it is what it is.
And you have the ability to do that.
Absolutely, and we are partners with the department in this process. But if anything derails the process, then we have to do what's best interest of our facilities. And the Secretary is well aware of that.
Well, having said that, can I call the question? Yeah, because he is here present, although he stepped out, right? I can? The question is called. There's a first and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone against? Motion carries. We move forward. Item E, Council.
MDX procurement contract number RFQ 16-06, MDX work program number 50001.050, construction and engineering inspection services for the Dolphin Station Park and Ride and Terminal facility projects, $1,230,297.75, which is an estimate. Approval to advertise.
Okay, who else is going to speak on this item?
I will.
It's your day.
Half of it. Committee members, in line with the other park and ride items that we've brought in the past, last month we did the design build approval to advertise. This is the contract for the construction, inspection, and engineering services for the oversight of the design build contract. We are going to be putting this out because of the size of the project and coordination with procurement. We think that this is an opportunity to promote small business, so we're upping the requirement. We're going to do a 50% small business requirement with a 15% local. And we feel that that's going to be a lot better, to promote the small business work. We need a technical evaluation committee. Right now we're proposing a board member oversight with the director of engineering, myself, and a representative from DOT and the county. And, this is the similar composition that we proposed for the design build contract. As far as the funding, we are currently we have $570,000 funded for CEI in the approved program, and that's part of the initial $10 million that was given between DOT and the county. But as we mentioned in the past, and to remind the committee, the county has committed the additional funding for the entire estimate that we put together, and that's going to be based on the prices that come in. There's a commitment that they're going to be making up that difference in the next budget cycle that they go through now in September and October. So we should be getting that amendment around the same time where all the funding will be there for the project.
Very good. I want to open this item for discussion. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Item is now open for discussion. Would you like to add anything else to this item?
I think that basically covers it.
What? We voted. We voted.
No. The only emphasis, board members, for the record again, is 65% of this procurement is going to go to small and local business.
It's unbelievable.
And that's what we believe there's enough of a market out there to do it.
Madam Chair, may I ask a
Not
question?
100%.
Yeah,
Here we go. Yes.
will this set a record for us? Have we ever done a project like this?
Yeah, we've had 100%.
65%?
We've had 100% small business.
Of this magnitude, this importance.
We did a 70% set aside at one time for a small project. Again, because we don't we can't do the bonus stuff, the bonus requirements anymore. We're just making it a flat out 50% requirement. We know that for this size, there are enough firms out there that would be able to make up this percentage.
I think, Madam Chair, that we should somewhere along the line brag about this. So one of these advertisings that we take, I think we ought to talk about that 70%
But we've
project.
earned bigger bragging rights regarding, I think we award, what, 65%?
Really, I bragged 2 weeks ago at Team Florida for the last 5 years, and I think Rick was there, and he presented as well as a graduate of our programs. But over the last 5, and actually I did the math over the last 9, 40 cents of every dollar go to a smaller local business. That's not a commitment; it's actual payout. So.
Yeah, I think it shows a lot the kind of the business mind that we're thinking, that we've got to protect our community and keep the small businesses going. So it's a good thing. Are there any questions on this item? We couldn't make it 100%?
I think we'd be pushing the envelope a
That's
little bit.
CEI, and it happened to us before, and that's why we did the 70% and with a 30%. Because it's CEI and it's personnel, let them have the flexibility of possibly adding to their team from a non-small business.
We can set aside contracts. Legally, we're not allowed to set aside contracts. So we can raise the percentages like we did in this one, but not set it 100% aside.
Very good. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone against? Item carries. Congratulations to staff for thinking and once again realizing how important doing business with small business. Okay, I have no more items, which means that unless you have comments or anything else, we are moving to conclude. Yes.
Just real quick, Madam Chair. I requested and went to a 3-day meeting here in Miami of the managed lane transportation technical experts, and they came from all over. They came from Minnesota and Chicago and Los Angeles. It's one of the best meetings that I've ever been to. I was way out of water because it was all very, very highly technical. But I want you to know that this is catching on like wildfire in the country. There are now 32 managed lane projects underway in the United States. Just in California alone is $6.8 billion, 120 miles of projects. And I think it's completely changing the way people are looking at transportation in Minnesota. I will be going up next week to Washington to see the I-66 corridor where they have trains, managed express buses on managed lanes from Washington to Dulles, and it's completely changed the gridlock problems of the North Virginia, Washington area. And I will be making a report on that, on those findings. But I just want to tell you that just got to keep our eyes open, because the industry, just like the automobile industry and just like the telephony industry, is changing. Man, it's changing quick.
Thank you for always participating, and the learning is very important, and your sharing of information with us. And are there any other comments?
Just an announcement, just for the board, for the committee to know, and I'll make the announcement at the board meeting as well. In June 7th, the Florida Transportation Commission is going to hold their meeting here at the MDX boardroom. So just for FYI, it's a public meeting, but it'll be held here.
Cool. They're coming to town. They're coming to your backyard, huh, Mayor? There's a ticket. There's somebody left their parking pass in the front. Make sure that if it's yours, check your pockets, check your wallets. You may not have your pass, so that means you ain't getting out. So you need to pick it up in the front desk.
Madam Chair, there was an oversight on the last item, and Treasurer Rodriguez-Pina has graciously accepted being the oversight for the CEI.
I didn't oversight it.
Okay.
I knew there was somebody, so it was funny. He's
accepted, yes.
He accepted to be part of it, right?
Yes.
That's funny.
Yes,
You
Madam
mean
Chair, I'm here.
the C is, oh my God. That's, you know, this item you've always loved so much.
Yep.
This is the item that you really love, that you revere for, you live for every day. So with that, is there a motion to adjourn? Right, I heard it. We are adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming.